Donald Trump comes out with a new plan called Schedule F to fire thousands upon thousands of workers in the federal government. Unfortunately, some of them are going to get hired back. All of them? Probably not. But to fire thousands and thousands and have the hope that most of them aren't coming back, well, stop. I can only get so excited here. So we'll be talking about that and what that means and where we go from that. Biden tells his doctor, "Hey, look, man, I cleaned my whole plate." In response to the fact that he's doing well with COVID, because this is absolutely a serious administration, trust me. So we'll be talking about that and what that means and where we go from that. A trucker blockade shuts down major California seaports in Oakland for a second day and possibly now through the weekend. So we'll go over what that means and how that's going to affect the supply chain. So sit tight for that. And Twitter has started to ban people calling other people groomers. But don't worry, we have a new word for them, just like we had for over on Reddit. It is going to be all this and more. You are my favorite breakfast tacos. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and no, that was not commissioned by Hunter Biden behind me. That's actually my niece's bird painting. And yeah, you can actually kind of see the bottom there. Her older brother did the Ghostbusters logo for me up there, just above that as well. So, no, that's not a Hunter Biden original, trust me. I don't have that kind of money, and if I had that kind of money, I would have a whole lot of property before I would have a Hunter Biden original, trust me. Because what do those go for? Like $500,000 a pop or something like that, I think is what they go for. Don't worry, just trust us. It's worth that much because it's a Hunter Biden original. Anyway, welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a ton of stuff to go over here today. It was a busy Friday mostly. It wasn't that busy of a weekend, or I probably wasn't paying attention that much over the weekend. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I did not get to, because of a tire emergency, spend the weekend with my parents and my nieces and nephews over the weekend. That was all done up and taken care of, and then we had storms come through, and I got absolutely no sleep on Saturday whatsoever. But I decided on Sunday to just unplug completely. So, spend the entire day either at work or in Kenosha for Saturday, and then come back here. I did some hiking, I did some work around the house. I did sleep a little bit late just because, the thunderclap and the power outages that ensued, plus cleaning up some stuff on Saturday night, waking me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I way overslept on Sunday. Kind of was just around the house, did some cleaning and some stuff like that around the house, and went on a nice big long hike throughout Sunday too. So if I did miss anything major in the news on Sunday, I do apologize for that, but I needed that unplug. I just stepped out, walked away from Twitter. It was still up, and I did throw a couple tweets out here and there, especially with Kinzinger going scorched earth, which once we're done with finance is what we're going to start with. But yeah, I needed that unplug. I really did. Just to get away from it all, because we're all so inundated by it constantly. Whereas you should be out there touching grass and doing stuff like that as well. I do hope to get another hike in yet today before we come back out and do video games, but I want to go down and go into the good park. That's miles and miles and miles and miles and miles long, but I got a couple chores that I got to take care of here that are out and about before I can even think about doing that. So we'll see what happens. Maybe there'll be some pictures on Twitter. Maybe not. Who knows? But we'll see what happens with that. All right, let's get into it. Let's get the live chat up so I can see what you guys are saying. Maybe I have my microphone off and don't even know it. and you guys are just sitting here typing out in all caps, microphone, microphone. Haha, that's happened before. All right, let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, and the Porch Boys. Go over to Twitter and check out KTZ is not here. That is KTZed, who did do a true crime podcast yesterday. I did not get to catch it live. That is going to be on my rotation for my hike as I get out and do that. So, because I didn't know about it until I got back and plugged back in to go set up Contemporary last night, and that was long after it was over. I don't have my Twitter DM alerts on my phone. I don't have any Twitter alerts on my phone. None. That was when I got my new phone and realized that I was up over 1,400 followers on Twitter again. That's getting turned off. We're not going to sit there and listen to that thing chirp all day long. So, yep, we've got no Twitter alerts on there. But yeah, go check out KTZed's and her new episode for True Crime. That's probably going to be awesome because I know what's in. I know she had call-ins at the end too. So I'm kind of curious to what people had to say about that. Also, go check out at Tweets by Brit over on Twitter, who has a new sketch comedy show upcoming in the works. So we'll see how that turns out. I think it's going to be a great time. So go and check that out. Let's get into the finance here before we can get into the fun stuff. We'll get into the boring stuff, but tell some friends and get some people over here while we're getting into it. All right, starting with the Dow. The Dow ended down on Friday. It started up and then it just kind of tumbled throughout the day, coming down to 31,899.29 throughout the day. It did try to swing itself back up, and it looks like the futures are turning back up right now. Some of that's going to be coming off tech, and some of that's going to be coming off the fact that some of your goods are going to start costing less and less to ship. Not like what we saw in 2020 or 2019 or 2018 for that matter, but still less than what we were seeing at the peak in the end of June and the beginning of July. So some reprieve is coming off of that, and that is going to affect the way that your markets go. Looking in at the Bitcoin across the last 5 days, it's been a tumultuous run. Big swings down, big swings up, big swings down, bigger swings down, and then a slight up, and then some more swings down. Ending today, coming in after midnight at $21,946 US dollars and 80 US cents. That is down over the past 5 days. $1,280 US dollars and 10 US cents, about 5 cents down, but coming down off of its peak from 23,671.80. This is off of its start 5 days ago at 23,226.90. So it's been a tumultuous ride on Bitcoin. It's been staying fairly steady around the between 17 and 25 mark. We're not seeing wild swings up to 70,000 or swings down to 5,000 anymore, but we are seeing some swings off of that. So we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes. Looking at the gas, which has another bit of reprieve. I saw 368 where I go a couple days ago, which usually it's 10 cents higher than what we see off of Madison, which I would have expected 384 throughout that time, but no, there is one station down by me that's at 368. However, going into the Madison area, we've got the Spirit in Madison proper is at 373. Otherwise, the rest of the Madison area is sitting at 366. And now we've got Biden strutting around like a chicken, like, the 40 cents that I told you, it went down in 45 days. I'm sorry, no, 60 cents. It's 60 cents in 45 days. Hey, look at me, look how great I am. Hey, now it's 65 cents in 40 days. Hey, come on, man, vote for my people again. Hey, we did great by you. So that is what we see coming off of the Madison area. These prices will not reflect your specific area, but this has been using the same stations over the past. How long have we been doing gas prices? We took a break to do metal prices when things were still looking up. But how long have we been doing gas prices? Since, well, heck, I think I put the gas prices on when things started to climb back up after the Biden admin. Yeah, so we've been doing this for a little over a year, with the exception of, I think it was 4 months that we switched over to metal prices, so we've seen some wild swings off of that, and again, people are thinking that, oh yes, this is still awesome. Look at how much better we're doing than what we were. And yeah, it's terrible. All right, let's grab one from IBD, and then we'll grab one from investors.com, and then we'll get into the main news of the day. Dow futures rise, Apple leads earnings wave, Fed rate hike looms, what to do now? From Ed Carson. I can't wait until they drop. It's got to be coming towards the end of the month. The economic numbers for quarter 2. Because I'm pretty sure that we're going to be seeing that we've been in a recession for the entire year of 2022. And they don't want to admit it just yet. Dow futures rose modestly Monday, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq. The stock market rally had strong gains last week, breaking above some key resistance. Techs pulled back on Friday on Snap and other poor earnings. Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Facebook parent Meta Platforms headline a massive week for earnings. Meta stock and Google sold off hard on Friday on Snap results and a lack of guidance. Microsoft fell back to its 50-day line. Amazon merely trimmed big weekly gains, but Apple stock is one of the 5 even close to its 200-day lines, and it has no obvious buy point in sight. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve meets with another big 75-point rate hike, likely coming on Wednesday. Guidance for future moves will be key. Investors have started to downsize the September rate hike, with limited tightening after that. And that's in large part the economy rapidly slowing, perhaps even falling into a recession. A recession, along with still high inflation, is not a great mix for corporate profits. Well, it's not a great mix for your household either, but hey, let's do the corporate profits first, because, hey, that's what matters. Never mind the fact that you plebes can't go out and buy milk for your baby or vegetables. And we still have probably more inflationary stuff coming. The hike that I went on yesterday, and meanwhile, keep in mind that I have been around agriculture for almost my entire life, except for 2 years. When I lived out in the Boston area, and trust me, there is no agriculture over there. Until you get past Worcester, there is no agriculture out there whatsoever. So I've been around agriculture for 36 years. I looked out at the corn, part of the route that I was on the trail, or I'm sorry, part of the trail that I was on yesterday, butted up against a cornfield. I didn't know about that either, by the way. I found that, and I discovered a new trail over by where I live, and it butts up against a cornfield. And that was the saddest looking corn for July I've ever seen in my life. The corn should be taller than I am at this point in the year, and it's not. So that's what your fertilizer is doing. It's not doing terrible, but it should be taller than I am, and it's not. And I'm 6 feet tall. So do keep that in mind once everything starts coming down and harvest season comes up in the fall. While the recent action in the major indices has been promising, investors should still be cautious as they add exposure. Not many leading stocks have been flashing buy signals. Meanwhile, several promising stocks have seen sudden sell-offs, including Dollar Tree, Lantheus, Agillion Health, and Li Auto, forcing tough decisions for investors. Lantheus is on the IBD leaderboard, while Agillion exited Friday. Li Auto stock and Agillion are on the IBD 50. Microsoft and Google are on the IBD long-term leaders. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.5% versus fair value. The S&P advanced 0.45%, and the Nasdaq climbed 0.4%. The 10-year yield rose 3 basis points to 2.81%. Which is interesting because on Friday it was in the 2.9s. Crude oil climbed 1%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see coming off of that. Let's grab one briefly by the numbers off of Friday, and then we will get into the main news of the day. From investing.com. Sounds like there's a bird outside my window. I hope it's not eating my carnivorous plants. From Liz Moyer. This is on the Friday stock market today. Dow closes lower as tech stocks dive. U.S. stocks sank on Friday, dragged down by tech as social media weighed in on the sector, but the 3 major indices closed out gains for the week. At 4:08 p.m., the Dow Industrial Average was down 137 points, or 0.4%, while the S&P was down 0.9%. The Nasdaq fell 1.9%. But the stocks have been rallying since June on corporate earnings, which will continue to pour out next week. The Dow is up about 2% for the week, while the S&P is up more than 2%, above 3,900, a key support level. The Nasdaq is up more than 3% for the week. Snap Incorporated shares tumbled 39% after it said inflation and competition hurt advertising demand, and it declined to forecast results. It was its slowest ever sales growth as a publicly traded company. Snap, the owner of the disappearing message app Snapchat, said it's going to cut back on hiring, as have other large media companies. Twitter missed expectations for profit, revenue, and user growth and blamed its performance, in part on its battle with Elon for chasing away advertisers. The company is suing Elon Musk in Delaware to force him to make good on his $44 billion takeover, which he wants to scrap. I bet you he gets it for $34 billion. Official prediction. That's what I'm seeing is coming. $34 billion. Shares rose 0.8%. Revenue of the $1.18 billion fell short of the $1.33 billion forecast. Other social media stocks were falling, including Meta, down 7%. In a broader view, so far 91 S&P 500 companies have reported earnings, and more than 3/4 of them have beaten expectations, Reuters reported. Oil fell. Crude oil WTI futures fell 1.6% to $94.78 a barrel, and Brent oil futures fell 0.5% to $103.30 a barrel. Gold futures rose 0.5% to $17.22 per ounce. So, just a little bit by the numbers ending on Friday, and these numbers, of course, will be going up as the futures go. We'll continue to watch and see where the markets lead us as we crunch the numbers and see if we're in a recession or not. There's still only 6 days left in July, so that's going to be the other one to watch, because they typically have the quarter's numbers out by the end of the month after that quarter ends. So that's going to be interesting to see. We'll continue to watch. Let's get into the big news of the day. The first thing that I want to do today is talk about Representative Adam Kinzinger. Now, Kinzinger has seemed to go full scorched earth over the past couple days. He's realized that he is districted out, that he's not going to get reelected, and that it's over for him. Partially coming from his MSNBC audition, which we'll be talking about as we go through his timeline again. But this one specifically popped up in my feed. When the hell did this pop up in my feed? I think I looked at Twitter when I finally drug myself out of bed. Yeah, because I did. This was at 6:30 in the morning. Yesterday. So when I did finally drag myself out of bed yesterday, I did look at Twitter briefly before I decided, yeah, you know what, let's just unplug. And I found this. This was actually part of the reason that I just got up and said, I can't do this. When you're too scared to join the army and too dumb to be a cop. Shorting course for those who are just listening on audio. A number of people in tactical gear with beards, showing, of course, that they're not military, carrying regular standard semi-automatic rifles that have seen never a use on a battlefield. Noting that in Kinzinger's district, which, by the way, I'm very familiar with Kinzinger's district that is disappearing, outside of Rockford, and outside of the Chicago suburb of Joliet, which is about where Kinzinger lives, a lot of that is very, very based and very, very red. Illinois is a very, very red state with the exception of Rockford, Chicago, and Springfield. And the little region that's on this side of the river is St. Louis. So these people in this meme are the people that put Adam Kinzinger into 6 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives, 12 years on the government dole. And now he's going full scorched earth and telling the world what they think about it. By the way, and this is something that's it's really bothered me for a long time. This is not new for people in the government. This is what they think of all of us. Whether we support them, whether we're high class, erudite, unless of course we're donors. But unless we are erudite, Or even if we're erudite, if we don't donate to them, this is what they think of us. If we're a hee-haw toothless redneck, this is what they think of us. But see, they'll never say the quiet part aloud. This is not news. Your government hates you. They hate the fact that they have to go shell out money for you. They want to control you. They want to control every aspect of your life. This is why I stopped playing team sports. Because of crap like this. And it's not just this either. Let's go look through the Kinzinger timeline and see some of the stuff that's out here. And he's, of course, big on Holly. Oh, Holly ran away! Well, if he ran away, doesn't that mean that he probably didn't know about any of this? That none of this was planned? Because Holly, being an avid Trump supporter, would have been in on the loop if this was a big Trump thing. But let's look through some of the scorched earth. Now, one thing I do want to keep in mind is that some of the stuff has actually been deleted from yesterday. I should have screenshotted some of this from yesterday. Cheney, it would be a dereliction of our duty to be in a position because McCarthy decided to withdraw nominees because Trump told him to. That somehow the House can investigate the worst attack on the Capitol since the War of 1812. Shut up. Of course, Midas Touch is now affiliated with Adam Kinzinger, even though they protested Adam Kinzinger up until he got on the January 6th Select Committee. The Bradford File tweets out, "You will never convince me that Liz Cheney, Nancy Pelosi, and Adam Kinzinger didn't help orchestrate the events of January 6th. With a blinking dude. Like, he's going through and searching for every instance of Twitter with his name in them. Liz Cheney for POTUS. Oh, I threw up in my mouth a little bit on that one. Geraldo Rivera, you used to protest Liz Cheney and her dad. Kinzinger to Republicans, your leaders are lying to you. Yeah, you're one of them. And you're also not a leader. You're a public servant. They know the election wasn't stolen, but they're going to send out fundraising requests. They're going to take your money from you, and they're going to use you to stay in power. You're being abused. What the hell have you been doing for the last 6 years? After you go scorched earth on the people that put you into office for six terms, 12 years. Anti-Matt Gaetz, dereliction of duty, Matt Gaetz, Trump is now secondary to cancer, too scared to join the army, too dumb to be a cop, Trump, Holly, and of course this one. The Babylon Bee puts out an article, Cheney and Kinzinger are confident they nailed their MSNBC audition, and he is proud of this. I mean, it was a pretty solid hearing. We also nailed Trump as a stain on American history. Dude, get another shtick, seriously. In 5 years, nobody will be admitting they supported him. Remember those words, because if he can get in and make good on the promise we're about to talk about, I will be praising from the ceilings that I supported him. And they're afraid, by the way, especially given the announcement that Trump made on Friday. They're afraid. They're afraid that he'll get in. They're desperate to disqualify him because they are deathly afraid that he'll get in and do this. Which we'll talk about in just a moment. But as for you, Kinzinger, thank you for saying the quiet part out loud. This is why I'm a Federalist. Wishing the government could be as close to you as possible, so when you do run into the person who made the bad law in the grocery store, you can look and say, hey, Dave, what the heck? Hey, my kids have to live through this, Dave. What are you thinking? That is my dream right there, that we never have to deal with laws coming from people like this. But also why I say the government hates you. Why I hate government in and of its forms. Why I have that flag sitting up behind me. Because this is what they all think of you. Kinzinger's just done the good part of saying the quiet part out loud. Alright, let's talk about Schedule F. From the Daily Mail, to start with for that, Trump would fire tens of thousands of civil servants and gut the government to sort his agenda if he runs and wins in 2024. I cannot say the comment that I said in Discord chat, because there might be kids watching or listening, because, again, as I said before, we are starting to compete with the AM radio folks. But I will paraphrase that and say, stop! Stop! I can only get so excited over here. From Morgan Phillips, politics reporter for DailyMail.com. Donald Trump has plans to purge the so-called deep state beyond what any president has done before if he runs and wins for the presidency. This is pure fear porn. And as many as 50,000 government workers could find themselves on the chopping block. The former president, if elected again, would move in with a plan being drawn up now to drain the swamp and cut tens of thousands of civil servants from what are typically apolitical roles, according to the Axios report. He said he would clean house of mid-level staffers at the Pentagon, Justice Department, State Department, and beyond, and bring in thoroughly vetted candidates who are found to be more closely aligned with his America First agenda. Or, and here's a thought, you could just leave them vacant. This is a thing that's bothered me. Before we go on any further than this, we get this every time we come up to a point where the government has, quote, even though they never will, but, quote, run out of money. Is that the next thing we do is we get a panic piece from MSNBC, from Fox, from CNN, from their affiliates in the local, from the Associated Press, from NPR, from ABC, from Bloomberg, from all the major left-wing outlets out there. And yes, I do consider Fox to be in the left-wing outlets as well. But from all the major left-wing outlets, the first thing that we hear, oh, look at all these people who are going without a paycheck because, insert highest ranking Republican here, won't deal with our Messiah, insert highest ranking Democrat here. They're shutting down the government. These people aren't going to get paid. It's so horrible. I'm going to tell you right off, if I was president, first I would like to say that I could do the same thing as Trump is doing. A Schedule F. Get rid of most of these people and not have them replaced if it was me. But even if I did have to have them on, the first thing, there's a fly in here, they're distracting from me pontificating over what I would do as president. I would find out when the current omnibus, because you know they're not going to have a budget again forever until somebody comes in and cracks down. I would come out and I would give a daily speech briefing every day. And the first thing that I would say is we have this much time until the government runs out of money. And I will not sign an omnibus bill. So if you are a government worker, you have this much time to get your affairs in order. Whether it's find a job in the private sector or put some money aside to keep your mortgage paid. Because you'll get your back pay, but keep your mortgage paid while we are dueling out the budget. And it's going to be them that shuts it down, because I will not sign their omnibus. If we let thousands of these people go out of the government and let them go back down into the private sector where they're not affected by a government shutdown, 50,000 people wouldn't be political pawns anymore. But of course, like I say, he's got to replace them. I'm like, just why? Don't replace them. Let's see. After interviews with over a dozen Trump World insiders, and the outlet's investigation found that Trump is planning to use an executive order called Schedule F, which he issued in October of 2020 and Biden later rescinded. The order would reclassify tens of thousands of civil servants who were deemed to have some influence over policy as Schedule F employees, which would strip them of their employment protections. New presidents typically replace about 4,000 political appointees to align agencies with their new agenda, but below them are a mass of federal workers who have strong employment protections and typically continue in their role from one administration to the next. Dr. Fauci is probably a prime example of this. Doing so could strip mid-level government staffers of any sense of job stability and set a new precedent of forcing future new presidents to seek out and install their own loyalists throughout the bureaucracy. Or, just leave them open. Russ Vought, the former head of Trump's Office of Management and Budget, is reportedly working on plans to make the security clearance process less onerous so that more government workers could be made political appointees. Or, just leave them open. We're going to consciously bring on the toughest and most courageous fighters with the know-how and credibility to crush the deep state, Vought told Axios. Or, crush the deep state by... Oh, you guys get the picture already. I've said it enough. While Trump and many of his former top aides and allies are no longer on speaking terms, the former president is relying on a close cadre of still trusted former advisors who are working with conservative organizations to line up talent. Or, I think you get it at this point. It's also thought that for top jobs, Trump will only bring on those who most actively supported his 2020 election fraud claims. Jeffrey Clark, a controversial lawyer who advocated for a plan to contest the election results and now finds himself in the crosshairs of the January 6 Selfie Fest committee and the FBI, is thought to be in line for AG. Sources close to former presidents say that Rick Grenell has a decent shot at Secretary of State nomination. As acting director of national intelligence, Grenell was one of Trump's favorite officials towards the end, as he worked to declassify material from the Trump-Russia investigation. Grenell, who now works on Newsmax, that's a good reason not to bring him into the government right there, said the network earlier this year, "I'm not going to stop until we persecute Trump's former FBI director, Jim Comey." Kash Patel, chief of staff to acting Defense Secretary Christopher Miller, at the time of the attack on the time of the Selfie Fest on the Capitol, would likely be in line for a top national security job at the White House. If he could make it through a Senate confirmation, he would even be appointed as a CIA or FBI director, according to Trump allies. So, this was the release on Friday that he was planning on doing this, and I know that I said that he would have to really, really convince me in order to get me to vote for him for a third time. Because I didn't decide to vote for him until the very, very, very last second in 2020. I was going to leave the top of the line blank in 2020. I'm still not convinced right now, but this was a really, really, really big step in that direction. And I would like to analyze Schedule F and see if it's feasible. Of course, again, as you know, I like to move from replace them with Trump loyalists to, just leave them vacant. Wouldn't it be funny to watch the networks twist themselves into pretzels to try to defend the paychecks of people who are Trump loyalists? That would be funny, I will give it that. Not the mid-level staffers who've been there for decades upon centuries, but the actual Trump loyalists that replaced them, to watch MSNBC try to defend those people. I think that would be hilarious. Alright, from Axios, Trump to tout Schedule F at Turning Point rally, from Mike Allen and Jonathan Swan. So this article was written before the rally, and I did not watch the rally again because I was in Kenosha. Former President Trump, in remarks prepared for delivery on Florida on Saturday evening, planned to tout his Schedule F executive order and call on Congress to give the president more power to fire federal employees, according to excerpts obtained by Axios. The former president's new blitz against federal employees follows a two-part Axios investigative series by Jonathan Swan, Inside Trump's 25, revealing his allies' plans to make the issue a centerpiece if he wins a second term. Why It Matters, by directly raising Schedule F, Trump is amplifying plans from a well-funded outside allies to purge career civil service if he gets back into power. To drain the swamp, we need to fire the swamp, Trump plans to tell a Turning Point event in Tampa, according to the excerpts. In the speech, Trump will say that he wants a new presidential power to ensure any bureaucrat who is corrupt, incompetent, or unnecessary can be told, "You're fired!" Now, again, my big thing is that yes, we should leave all of these offices blank. Shrink the size of the federal government. Run it down to a skeleton crew. We don't need all those people on the federal dole. Think of the tax savings if we did this. But I picture... No, it's not my picture. As much as I'd like to take credit for it, it's not my picture. Our friend Arvold gave us the projection of what it will look like on January 21st of 2025, after Inauguration Day, if Trump gets reelected for his Hong Kong second term, Susan, don't ban me. And it's going to look a little something like this. Execute! Schedule F! See, I went to Arvold and I said, hey, can we get, how do you feel about the idea of a Palpatine meme for Schedule F? Because people are calling it the Order 66 of presidential politics. And he turned around and took my idea and made it 10 times better, as he always does. Every time I come up with an idea for a meme, I turn around, and I hand it off to Arvold, and he makes it 20 times better than it was in my head. Every single time. He's good at this. So, thank you, Arvold, for that. After the show, I will put this into the funny papers on the Discord, but I wanted to debut it over here first. The facial expression just did it. To put Trump under the hood and use that specific facial expression just did it. That did that idea pure justice. So, that's what we see off of that. Schedule F. Just leave them all fired, dude. From the Daily Wire. Another thing where they're scared. Battle Stations MSDNC analyst says if Republicans win, they'll cancel elections and impeach Biden weekly. Well, they should impeach him weekly. From Virginia Kruta. I would like to see Biden impeached at least 3 times. Just to put it on record. MSDNC analyst Malcolm Nance predicted that a litany of horrors and injustices would certainly follow if Republicans were successful in their efforts to retake the House, the Senate, or both in November's midterm election. What horror and injustice would that be? Nance spoke with SiriusXM radio host Dean Obiadella on Friday about the upcoming elections, and he made it clear that the seriousness of the predicament in which Democrats find themselves could not be oversold. Let's have a listen, shall we?
What should Democrats be doing? There it is. It's battle stations. The Democrats, Joe Biden, all the rest of them need to understand they are, what are we, July, August, September, October, November. You are 4 months from the end of American democracy. 4 months. And we said that in 2020, and that was true then too, right? But now you're talking about putting a party in power in which there will never be another election. They will vote through every piece of legislation and defund every component of the United States government. They're not joking about impeaching Joe Biden every week, okay, and Kamala Harris, and getting rid of people or expanding the Supreme Court, whatever it is they think they can do, even though some of it's crazy. First thing that they said, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert said, we will criminally prosecute every person who took part in the January 6th investigation. They're talking about militarizing as a dictatorship, as a Duma, like in Russia, Congress. This will be the end of Congress. We've already seen the end of the Supreme Court. We've seen the Supreme Court is no longer an instrument of justice. It is a political body that is looking out for its own personal political interests. Well, Congress could end this November. And, I don't say this lightly. You have to fight here. This is the time. You've got 4 months to mobilize 20% new voters and get every voter that voted in 2021 out there. And I'll likely be back before the American election. The war is trending very well towards Ukraine. I'm certain we will have things in hand by November. But you got to mobilize people.
Okay, a lot to unpack with that one because, that's a little bit problematic right there. Well, number one, you come out and say, oh, well, they're going to criminally prosecute everybody who was involved with January 6th with the investigation. Oh, you mean like your sympathetic, sycophantic followers are demanding a criminal prosecution for everybody that they perceive to have been involved in January 6th? You mean like that? That they're going to impeach Biden weekly? You mean like they hurried up and threw an impeachment together so they can come back and say that they impeached Trump twice? Oh, no, we'll totally have Ukraine in a handle on that by November. That's the one that really bothers me. Because that tells me right then and there that this was all planned. This is all something that they put out there so that they could have another election issue other than the crashing and sinking economy. That none of this is real, and none of this is real, folks. I figured this out long ago. This is all a show, just like walking around with a cop with his hand on your arm and your hands held crossed behind your back. No handcuffs, just acting like you have handcuffs on, and then throwing the power fist up when you think that nobody's looking. These people are afraid, and they should be. All right, what else do we have? Let's talk about Biden. So we have White House doctor and COVID expert Ashish Jha. Biden ate his breakfast and lunch fully. He actually showed me his plate. This is not a serious administration.
And as you all saw just a few minutes ago, the president is doing better. He slept well last night. He ate his breakfast and lunch. He actually showed me his plate.
This is not a serious admin.
And as you all saw just a few minutes ago, the president is doing better. He slept.
This is not a serious admin at all. Hey, look. I cleaned my plate, man. Hey, can I have some ice cream now? No, Joe. Have your bran muffin. Oh, don't just put your signature on here. Yes, no, don't read that too closely. No, those are big words. Big words that you can't understand. This is not a serious admin. All right, from BBC, which gave me an author, which they don't usually do. Biden's doctor. President's COVID symptoms have improved. I still want to know what meeting they were trying to get him out of. From Bernd de Busman Jr. U.S. President Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.'s condition has improved since he first tested positive for the pinkpox, the White House has said. The 79-year-old is experiencing mild symptoms, including a runny nose and fatigue. His doctor says he is responding well to medication. Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure they have all the CIA drugs. Plus, they can use hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, but you plebs can't. Mr. Biden has continued working while in isolation, according to the White House on Thursday, tweeted that he was doing great. The president is expected to resume normal duties once he tests negative. An update released on Friday, set by the president's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, noted that Mr. Biden had a slight fever on Thursday that responded well to Tylenol. CIA Tylenol. The president still has an occasional cough, and his blood pressure and oxygen saturation levels remain entirely normal. Dr. O'Connor added, "Well, he's had that cough since he took the Oval Office." In a Zoom meeting with his economic and energy advisors on Friday, Mr. Biden sounded hoarse, but said that he was feeling much better. I'm feeling much better than I sound, man. The president is also being treated with Paxlovid, an antiviral medicine that helps stop the pinkpox virus from multiplying in the body. This in turn allows the immune system to better combat the infection. Let me take that down just a little bit. Doesn't do it for your ears, but it does it for mine. In a news briefing at the White House, Press Secretary Token Diversity Hire said that she had spoken to the president and that he wants to remind Americans to get vaccinated. Hey, come on, man. Get the jab. Look at me, I'm 80 years old, I got it. Miss Diversity Hire added that the president has been very active and felt well enough to work an 8-hour day, which also included virtually receiving the president's daily briefings produced by U.S. intelligence agencies. Dr. Ashish Jha, the White House pinkpox response coordinator, said that Mr. Biden had slept well last night. He ate his breakfast and lunch fully, he added. Actually showed me his plate. Is this a Zoo Pals commercial? Like, seriously. I can imagine that he probably has the Zoo Pals up there. He's got the frog up there. It says, hey, look, man. Ribbit, Zoo Pals. How did we get here? Out of the 35 people that ran, how was this the best they could come up with? Like, seriously. This is the best that they had, folks. Dr. O'Connor added that he believes the president, who is fully vaccinated and boosted, will respond favorably to the medication, as most maximally protected patients do. There has been nothing in the course of his illness so far which gives me cause to alter that initial expectation, Dr. O'Connor said. The presidential doctor's assessment was echoed by his chief medical advisor, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease experts, Dr. Fauci, who told CBS that he fully expects Mr. Biden to do well. Mr. Biden is generally a healthy person. He's been vaccinated and boosted twice, and I got a little bit of money in my pocket for every one of those vaccines and boosts, and is feeling well enough to perform duties from the White House, Dr. Fauci added. White House officials have confirmed that Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as First Lady Jill Biden, have so far tested negative for the virus. Both were being considered as a close contact of the president. He cleaned his plate, you guys. This is not a serious admin. Jill got a little bit of hers, though. Let's read this or listen to this one here, and we'll read a couple about this one. Patriotic Babe tweets out, "Your husband is the worst president we ever had. You owe us gas money." Jill Biden, "Thank you." Hi!
Worst president we've ever had. You owe us gas money. You owe us gas money.
I am proud of the fact that we have come out to the point where I've decided to change the language and compete with the AM radio folks. To run cleaner language, to make sure that if they've got kids in the car, that they don't have to explain what the B word or the C word or the F word mean to the kids in the car. But man, do I want to use the B word right now for this disingenuous person here. She knows what they were saying. Like, oh yeah, no, thank you. Get me out of here, please, hurry. Make sure you come in closer. From the New York Post. Jill Biden jeered over Joe near New Haven, Connecticut ice cream shop. From John Levine. First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden was cheered by protesters during a visit to a Connecticut ice cream store this week. Your husband is the worst president we ever had, an unnamed man shouted at Biden on Wednesday. You owe us gas money. Thank you, she responded, smiling and waving towards the heckler. You suck, you jackass, screamed another man. Who was that did that in Happy Gilmore? Was that Buscemi that did that? No, Joe Flaherty. You can almost hear Joe Flaherty doing that too. Video of the moment was later uploaded to Twitter, where it swiftly racked up thousands of retweets. I was one of them. One day before her elderly husband began treatment for the pinko pox, the First Lady took in a visit to the Nutmeg State with Education Secretary Miguel Cardona as part of a national summer learning tour to address the pandemic-related learning loss, the Hartford Courant reported. The First Lady visited the New Haven ice cream shop with Cardona and Governor Ned Lamont. Discovered today that the First Lady and I share two common loves, teaching kids and ice cream. Ugh. This is not a serious admin. Lamont said in a tweet sharing images of himself with Biden. Yep, give him another photo up. All right, and we got one from Sky News as well. Joe Biden brutally heckled, your husband is the worst president. I'm sorry, your husband is the worst. You know what? They only gave me one paragraph. I thought they were going to give me more. Okay, next one. So, Jamie Raskin, they're doing the January 6th thing, and they're trying to do that hard. Jamie Raskin tweets out a clear campaign ad, by the way. I mean, his campaign logo is right there in the corner. On the taxpayer dime. Raskin, Steve Bannon has been convicted of acting in contempt of Congress. My argument with Rep. Gates is now settled. If subpoenaed, you show up and assert any privilege you think applies to specific questions, but you can't blow off the proceeding. To which, tweets by Britt, friend of the show, says, so what you got him on was not coming to your fake club. So had you not made this fake club, you'd have nothing on him. So basically, you'd have to make up a thing to get I think she missed some grammar here. So basically, you had to make up a thing to get a conviction of to convict anyone of. What did she mean to say here? I think the "get" is supposed to be missing, because that makes sense. So basically, you had to make up a thing to convict anyone of anything. Yeah, that makes more sense that way. So let's listen to Mr. Raskin campaigning on the taxpayer dime. I had a thought before we listen to this about what's going to happen. Because, you know, Boebert and Green and all the Republicans want to come out and investigate the January 6th Selfie Vest Committee, which I'm not entirely opposed to. But I know that as soon as they start this back up, Democrats are going to remember what the Hatch Act is because of crap like this.
Do you think that people who are subpoenaed by a court or by the United States Congress, who think in their head that they might have a privilege or someone else might have a privilege, have the right just not to show up?
I
Yes.
believe that people have the right to allow the legal process to
Okay,
resolve whether
but you
or
know
not
how
they're
that works, Mr.
obligated
Gates.
to
You're a
appear.
lawyer. You know how that
Very
works.
much so.
You
You
show
know how
up.
it works, too.
Wait a
You
second,
know
Mr.
that
Gates. Wait, hold on. Let's try to educate the public here.
Please.
Because people need to know.
Let's talk over everybody and not let them answer. Just like a Democrat does.
If you're subpoenaed, you go. If you think you have a privilege, for example, let's say Steve Bannon says, you know what, I'm guilty as hell. I don't want to testify against myself. In America, you don't have to. The Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination says, I plead the Fifth. I might incriminate myself, but you know what? You got to go. And you got to answer each specific question. Some of them might implicate your Fifth Amendment rights, and some of them might not. Even if he thinks he's got, in some surreal parallel universe, a presidential executive privilege, even though he didn't even work for the White House at that point. He'd been fired by Donald Trump in August of 2017. This is in January of 2021, in December of 2020. But even if he thought that, he's got to come before the committee and he has to plead it.
So, and Britt has this right out. They completely made up a reason to call these people in. And if they hadn't, there'd be no harm, no foul. Fanone got heckled as well, and somebody actually got arrested over this one. Will Staken, who is blue-checked, which means that you can pretty much disregard his entire opinion. Investigative reporter, a.k.a. partisan hack. ABC News. Send tips so I don't have to investigate. DMs open. Secure. W. Staken at protonmail.com. Quite a scene just now. Officer Michael Fanone heckled by protesters on January 6th hearing. Waiting outside the Capitol. He fought to defend... He fought to defend. That is propaganda in and of itself. Someone with a flagpole steps in and small skirmish ensues. Bet you the person with a flagpole was hired to go and do that. Are you a real police officer? And if it wasn't, and if you're thinking about doing something with a flagpole, don't do that. It's a trap. Don't bring the fight to the government. Let the government bring the fight to you. Let me reiterate that for those in the back. Don't bring the fight to the government. Let the government bring the fight to you. But I'm also not convinced that this is somebody who was trying to bring the fight to the government. Rather, somebody who was looking for a photo op to make Michael Fanone look good. Let's watch.
Why were you there January 6th? You were not even on duty. Why were you there January 6th, Michael Fanone? You were not even on duty. Why do you do CNN now? Are you a real police officer?
Leave me alone, sir.
Are you disappointed that you're going to make men face years in jail because of your lies?
Why do you have so many cameras? Fucking kidding me? An assault.
No, I didn't watch this clip before. I thought it was going to be like a Trump supporter plant in there that took a shot at Fanone. No, it's one of the counter protesters, went over and took a signboard and cracked one of the guys asking questions. And it looks, I want to slow that down to where he hit him to see if this guy is overacting, which is a possibility. Don't always keep that in mind. That's a possibility that he's overacting like this. Or if he just cracked that guy and knocked him down. To quote a great man who plays great music, yo!
Years in jail because of your lies.
Watch him. Watch him. He's going this way. So from here, it doesn't look like he hit him that hard. That might have been some overacting, but that's still assault. And then what's he going to do? Go back up and steal his bag? I suppose I should have given the earmuffs warning before this because, well, that's my fault for not pre-watching as well.
That you're going to make men face years in jail because of your lies?
Why do you have so many tattoos?
Yeah, I didn't know that this was the other direction. All right, police officer injured in Capitol riot, heckled after January 6th committee hearing. From NBC. And NBC, of course, is probably not going to play up what happened in that video. From Christopher Cicciello. Former Metro Police Department officer Michael Fanone, who suffered a heart attack and traumatic brain injury. Okay. After being assaulted during last year's Selfie Fest, was heckled near the U.S. Capitol after he attended Thursday's primetime hearing being hosted by the January 6th Selfie Fest committee. Journalists on the scene posted a video which contains profanities, showing Fanone walking past a small group that includes someone following him asking, "Are you a real police officer? Are you disappointed that you're going to make men face years in jail because of your lies?" After Fanone turned around and began walking the other way, a man holding an anti-Trump banner can be seen trying to block members of the group from following Fanone, who has testified to Congress and is a commentator for CNN. The footage shows the man falling down and claiming the man with the banner hit me with his pole. He did. We watched it. Now, the fall down may have actually been a little bit of overacting. I will concede that point. But no, he hit him with the banner. We watched it happen. In another video, the man who was holding the banner is seen handcuffed by police officers. He identified himself as Stephen Parlato of Boulder, Colorado, and said that he was there in support of the January 6th committee. Meanwhile, the man who fell can be seen getting taken into an ambulance. That might be overacting. NBC News has reached out to the Capitol Police for comment. Shortly before the incident, Fanone spoke with Politico about the now viral video of Senator Hawley fleeing protesters at Capitol on January 6th after raising a fist in solidarity outside the building just hours earlier. In a brief interview, Fanone called Hawley earmuffs. Earmuffs. Fanone called Hawley a bitch. You see the way that these guys perform in public, and then what they are in reality, Fanone told Politico. You get a lot of that nonsense up here on Capitol Hill with these members of Congress that have become like a caricature in the media, but in reality, they have no character, they have no honor, they have no integrity, and the way they behave outside the camera's eye is very different. Those are big words coming from you, Michael Fanone. All right, let's grab one from the Hill. One person arrested after protesters harass ex-DC police officer Michael Fanone. And I love the way that they phrase this and word this too. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. One person's arrested after protesters harassed. Now, most people are going to look at this and think like I did before I watched the video, that this was a protester came and rushed at Fanone. They're going to share this article out and around. Nobody's going to read it. They're going to see the headline and say, "Unhinged Trump supporters attacking Michael Fanone." From Chloe Fulmar. Former DC police officer Michael Fanone, who was assaulted by the mob attacking the Capitol on January 6, was harassed by protesters on Thursday night after he attended a hearing held by House Select Committee investigating the Capitol riot. Multiple videos posted on Twitter show a group following Fanone asking him antagonistic questions like, "Are you a real police officer?" I'm starting to think he was an actor. Fanone, who resigned from his job as an officer last year, now works for CNN, experienced a heart attack during the Selfie Fest, in addition to being beaten by a group of rioters and shocked him with his own taser multiple times. Video of Thursday's incident show a man with a banner of former President Trump labeled "Toxic Loser" pushing the protesters away from Fanone, causing a second man to fall over and yell. The second man is shown on video reporting to police that the man carrying the banner had hit him with a pole, after which police officers handcuffed the man with the banner. Two men have pleaded guilty to assaulting Fanone during the January 6th riot and will face penalties, which will get overturned because they were planted. But others have not undergone trial or have pleaded not guilty. A man from Iowa pleaded guilty in May and faces a sentence of 8 years. Dude, I love the wording and positioning of this. Okay, we put this in the article that says, for just a paragraph, that, oh yes, somebody with a flagpole pushed another guy and he fell down. But hey, let's talk about all the people that pled guilty and the fact that people harassing Fanone. Oh, no, here's this one sentence about the guy who pushed him down. They harassed Fanone and they pleaded guilty to hitting him. Like, the actual story here was an afterthought. The media is lying to you. They always have been. In news that was absolutely zero shock to anybody, Steve Bannon found guilty of contempt for defying January 6th committee subpoena in a court in D.C., tried by people who wanted to put him away for anything because he is Stephen Bannon. From Tierney Sneed, Caitlin Polance, Holmes Lybrand of CNN. So this is how this probably went. Well, this is how this could have gone. I'm sure that the officers, the prosecutor, the defense, both presented their arguments, crossed each other. It was a pretty quick trial from what I understand. But I could picture this. They get in there, they get the jury seated. The judge comes in and says, we're in session. This trial is for contempt of Congress of Stephen R. Bannon. Okay, let's get our opening arguments. And then the four-person jury stands up and says, Judge? Hi, we don't need to hear any of the arguments here. We're going into the jury box to deliberate. We'll be back in 5. That's pretty much how this trial could have gone because it was tried in D.C. His name is Steve Bannon, and he worked for Trump. Guilty! Put him away for life. He's only supposed to be getting a fine in 30 days. No, put him away for life. Hey, give us an indictment that we can put him away for life on. We can't do that in this court. Just something. Say that he murdered somebody. We'll find him guilty on that. That is a scene that I don't believe is beyond belief in today's polarized climate. Especially being tried in D.C. as a former Trump aide. A federal jury has found former Trump advisor Steve Bannon guilty of contempt of Congress for defying a subpoena from the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Selfie Fest. The conviction is a victory for the House January 6th Select Committee. Wow. You're taking that as a victory? Are you serious right now? As it continues to seek the cooperation of reluctant witnesses in its historic investigation, it's also a victory for the Justice Department, which is under the intense scrutiny for its approach to matters related to January 6th attack. After nearly 2 days of hearing evidence and witness testimony, the jury reached a unanimous verdict, and the 2 contempt charges in less than 3 hours. Yeah, like I say, I think that this would have taken like 5 minutes. Bannon will be sentenced on October. He faces a minimum sentence of 30 days, according to federal law. Bannon's team did not mount a defense during the trial, and he did not take the stand. He was indicted by a federal grand jury in November after he blew off October deadlines for producing the documents of testimony the committee had subpoenaed. In demanding his cooperation, the committee had pointed to Bannon's contacts with Trump in the lead-up to the Capitol Selfie Fest, his presence in the so-called war room of Trump allies in the Willard Hotel in Washington the day before the Selfie Fest, and a prediction that he made on his podcast that the Selfie Fest will be where all hell was going to break loose. In short, Mr. Bannon appears to have played a multifaceted role in the events of January 6th, and the American people are entitled to hear his first-hand testimony regarding his actions. The committee report recommended contempt resolution against him, said the House voted to hold Bannon in contempt in October. It's all theater. Every last moment of it. From the Blaze. Arrest of House Dems takes a new turn. AOC Biscuit admits far-left group asked lawmakers to submit themselves for arrest. Is there video of that? There is an image, but not video. Let's read. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez forcefully denied Wednesday that her arrest outside the Supreme Court on Tuesday was performative. But information on social media suggests the incident was not organic, but completely staged. About 30 minutes before the arrest of pro-abortion protesters outside the Supreme Court, which included more than a dozen Democratic lawmakers, a staffer for Rep. Ilhan Omar D. Somalia bragged on social media about the plan. Members of Congress, including Ilhan, will be participating in a civil disobedience at the Supreme Court, potentially including the arrest shortly. What am I missing here? Oh, he's saying that it's going to be shortly and then giving the times. 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. Staffer Jeremy Slevin tweeted, explaining the incident would be live-streamed. Yes, the revolution will be televised. Back before Zach De La Rocca and Tom Morello sucked. Once the Capitol briefly detained... one Capitol Police officer. Once Capitol Police. Wow, I can read this morning, you guys. I feel like Biden. I'm so proud of small tasks. Once Capitol Police briefly detained Omar, Slevin published video of her via the live stream. The arrests were in fact the entire point of the demonstration, and Ocasio-Cortez admitted as much on Wednesday. This was activist-led civil disobedience where activists and organizers from the Far-Left Center for Popular Democracy Action Fund and others asked members of Congress to submit themselves for arrest in front of the Supreme Court, okay, puppy? Ocasio-Cortez wrote on Instagram. The Washington Examiner described the Center for Popular Democracy Action Fund as a progressive dark money group funded by billionaire George Soros. CPD Action Fund is a sister organization for Center for Popular Democracy. All right, let's see if we can zoom this in at all. There we go. From Instagram. Let's talk about it. This was an activist-led civil disobedience where activists and organizers from CPD Action and others asked members of Congress to submit themselves for arrest in front of the Supreme Court. I respect you because you have no hate in your heart. I don't agree with your politics, but I can see that you're a good person and I value that more than anything. But why the publicity stunt? With acting like you're being arrested, it's just foolish and makes you look silly. This cause was noble, but acting like you're cuffed and like you're some sort of hero was just too much for me. Again, I respect you, but you're too much for me to support you. Please be genuine and stop getting caught in the circus act. She goes on and says, that's very different from a publicity stunt planned and led by members themselves for a headline. So why join disobedience? Because media cycles go fast and the attention and urgency on road can easily fade. We must keep eyes on the issue. Civil disobedience is a highly effective way of accomplishing that, and it's a trained discipline. If I didn't or refused to participate in an activist request, people would have burned me for that too. They have in the past. I understand and accept that I operate in an environment that will not cast my actions in a positive light, almost no matter what, from all angles. If I'm not there, people criticize. If I am there, they still do. So I'm just going to do me. Now, I would like to actually be in that position too. I accept being branded as too much in a misogynistic late-stage capitalist. Oh, that is so gross. That is totally insufficient for the present moment and propagandizes people to tear down any who challenge it. As for faking arrest, that is also false. I was arrested, charged, and fined. Police confirmed this fact and I posted the paperwork. Yeah, show your mugshots. Putting your hands behind your back is best practice when under arrest, whether you're handcuffed or not, because it can help you prevent more serious charges like resisting arrest. It's all so fake. You went out there with specific intent to get arrested. It's all so fake. Every minute of it is fake. Fake, fake, fake. From Reuters. You might have to archive this one. Oh good, it was already archived. Trucker blockade shuts major California seaport for a second day. From Lisa Bearlane and Tom Polansek. Truckers protesting California's new gig worker law blockaded the state's third busiest seaport for a second day on Thursday, stalling agricultural exports and threatening to worsen the U.S. supply chain backups. Can't we keep those exports here? The operator of the largest marine terminal on the Port of Oakland closed for business on Thursday, while the three other marine terminals in the property had some on-ship labor underway, port spokesman Robert Bernardo said. Independent truckers have been picketing terminal gates and choking truck traffic on the port since Monday in protest of California's new labor law, formerly known as AB 5. Backers say AB 5 aims to clamp down on labor abuses and push companies to hire drivers as employees, which would enable them to join unions to collectively bargain with employers. They don't want to. They want to go get out into the vehicle that they own, that they pay taxes on, that they pay insurance on, they pay the truck payment on, set their own hours, take their own dispatches, and take their own loads, and pick and choose their loads. The law is a win for unions. Of course it is, but is broadly opposed by big rig drivers who say it would make it more expensive for them to remain independent and push them to become company employees. Protesters in the trucking industry want California Governor Gavin Newsom to delay the enforcement of the law. Some organizers say the protesters, whose rally call is "The cargo won't flow till AB 5 goes," won't stop until they get a sit-down with Newsom. In a rebuff on Thursday, the governor's office said, "No one should be caught by surprise by the law's requirements. The industry should focus on supporting the transition." Wouldn't it be funny if all owner-operators got out of California and they only had company drivers, which I think is what they want? Because company drivers typically have the newest equipment that has all the emissions on it because the companies want to be able to go in and out of California as they please. The 8th busiest U.S. container seaport, a key hub for agricultural trade, was already working to clear a pandemic-fueled cargo backup before the trucker protests began. The knock-on effects of the occasionally confrontational protests were already rippling beyond trucking. It's not just this is a one-off, Shauna Morris, Senior Vice President for U.S. Dairy Export Council and the National Milk Producers Federation, said of the blockade. Well, we can consume that here. Dairy farmers and other food producers have struggled to get products on the water because container shipping lines prioritize more lucrative pandemic-fueled imports from Asia to the United States. We've added a tornado to the hurricane that the industry has been trying to endure for the last almost 2 years now, Morris said. It also complicates matters when the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, which is in high-stakes U.S. West Coast port labor contract negotiations with terminal operators, the ILWU supports AB 5 and says dock worker members didn't cross the blockade line for safety reasons. And this, I think, is what makes these people the maddest. The independent owner-operators are picketing. They are protesting. They are striking. But they're not striking while giving money over to a union so they can go back and donate it to Democrat causes. They're just striking without having to be organized with a lawyer. And that frightens the hell out of these people. They're doing it without a corporation over there like the ILWU, which is a billion-dollar corporation, by the way. These people are doing what you tell your union people to go back and do. And yeah, if you can't get these exports out of there, bring them out to the cheese factory and sell them here. I'd love to have some relief on the price of cheese. I really would. We've got one from Ron Helton's favorite politician and his publication. Ford plans up to 8,000 job cuts to help fund EV investment. Why? Explain that to me. Uh-oh. This one's also not archived. Let's see if it's been archived. 3 days ago, yep. Woohoo! This is from Keith Naughton and Edward Ludlow. Ford is preparing to cut as many as 8,000 jobs in the coming weeks as the automaker tries to boost profits to fund its push into the EV market, according to people familiar with the plan. But the eliminations will come in the newly created Ford Blue unit, responsible for producing internal combustion engine vehicles, as well as other salaried operations throughout the company, said the people, who asked not to be identified, revealing internal discussions. The plan has not yet been finalized and details could still change. The move would mark a significant step in the chief executive officer, Jim Farley's plan to cut $3 billion worth of costs by 2026. Would you look at that? You get the environmental push, and you get Bidenomics coming off of here, and all of a sudden, now Ford feels the need to come out and cut jobs. Isn't that special? You know, in 2020, even under the pandemic, there was a plan to keep the jobs here in this country and add a whole bunch more, and now they're being cut. Partially because people aren't buying vehicles right now because they're so ungodly expensive, and partially because, hey, they want to run back out to automation and sell stuff over to China and sell contracts over to China. He said he wants to transform Ford Blue into the profit and cash engine for the entire enterprise in March. Farley radically restructured Ford, cleaving its car making into two by creating the Model E unit to scale up EV offerings, and Ford Blue to focus on traditional gas burners like the Bronco Sport utility vehicle. As long as you keep building the 302, we're fine. Again, I don't care if people want to go out and buy an EV. I don't want one, and I don't want to be forced to have one. That seems to be what people don't understand about this. Ford declined to comment on possible job cuts, saying that it's focused on reshaping the organization to capitalize on the growth of electric vehicles. As part of this, we have laid out clear targets to lower our cost structure to ensure that we are lean and fully competitive with the best in the industry, Chief Communications Officer Mark Truby said in a statement. No, it got too expensive to do labor under Bidenomics, and you're trying to cut corners to the people who helped build your company is what you did. Get rid of this guy, but also get rid of the economic system that caused this. This is stagflation. This is coming. And we knew this was coming from the beginning of Bidenomics. And there's your unemployment ticking up too, by the way. Another one from Reuters. Speaking of the auto industry, Hyundai subsidiary has used child labor at Alabama factory. From Joshua Schneier, Mika Rosenberg, and Christina Cook. A subsidiary of Hyundai has used child labor at a plant that supplies parts for the Korean carmaker's assembly line in nearby Montgomery, Alabama, according to area police, the family of 3 underage workers, and 8 former and current employees of the factory. Underage workers, in some cases as young as 12, have recently worked at a metal stamping plant operated by Smart Alabama LLC. These people have said Smart, listed by Hyundai in corporate filings as a majority-owned unit, supplies parts for some of the most popular cars and SUVs built by the automaker in Montgomery. Its flagship U.S. assembly plant. In a statement sent after Reuters first published its findings on Friday, Hyundai said it does not tolerate illegal employment practices at any Hyundai entity. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead right now and call bull crap on that because I'm willing to bet on your stamping line, on your assembly line, and on your electrical line, you have at least 3 people named Jose who had a different name 3 weeks ago when INS came through. We have policies and procedures in place that require compliance with all local, state, and federal laws. It didn't answer detailed questions from Reuters about the findings. Smart, in a separate statement, said it follows federal, state, and local laws and denies any allegation that it knowingly employed anyone who was ineligible for employment. Look, I know people are looking older and staying in prime age appearance for longer, both on the upper spectrum and the lower spectrum, starting earlier, staying looking young later. I get that. But trust me when I tell you, you knew this kid was 12. You knew this was coming. And yeah, Randy actually points out properly as well that they sure do allow child labor in countries where it's legal. China. The company said it relies on temporary work agencies to fill jobs and expects these agencies to follow the law in recruiting, hiring, and placing workers on its premises. Dude, somebody knew there was a 12-year-old on that line. Smart didn't answer specific questions about the workers cited in the story or on the job scenes they and other people familiar with the factory described. Reuters learned of underage workers at the Hyundai-owned supplier following the brief disappearance in February of a Guatemalan migrant child from her family's home in Alabama. The girl, who turns 14 this month, and her 2 brothers, aged 12 and 15, all worked at the plant earlier this year and weren't going to school, according to people familiar with their employment. Their father, Pedro Z., confirmed these people's accounts in an interview with Reuters. So, willing to bet 3 underage, only one of which I believe is eligible for a work permit in Alabama. I know you have to be 15 for a work permit here in Wisconsin. 3 underage from Guatemala. Anybody want to guess on what their immigration status was? Somebody want to guess? I have an idea. Reuters isn't going to say it. So this is all fun. This is an audio. We're going to skip this one. We're not going to do NPR voice today because this is all an audio here, but this is a little bit behind the investigation of this. Let's keep going. This one was submitted to us over on the Discord, which, by the way, if you're not part of the Discord, come back in there. You can see what our emotes are, even if you don't subscribe over on the Twitch side. You can see and have conversations, and you can see upcoming stuff that's going to be coming onto the program, because I use my Discord as a tool to collate the news and decide what makes it and what doesn't. So if you haven't joined the Discord yet, do so. The links are in the description, and come and be part of the conversation. More job candidates are lying and cheating on their interviews. Employers are using AI to catch them. From Rebecca Knight. And thank you, Confused Kami, for coming in and submitting this. Employers are turning to AI to identify fraudulent job candidates as remote hiring and labor shortages fuel a rise in opportunities for dishonesty on the part of the applicants. Deception takes new forms in the era of remote recruitment. Some prospective hires have been known to receive interview answers from someone off camera in the Zoom room and mouth along a la Cyrano de Bergerac. Others exploit more remote assessments by getting another person to take their cognitive or coding tests for them. And others do a bait and switch where the person who interviews is hired and not the same person who shows up for the job. This fraud creates a frustrating, not to mention expensive problem for companies. They not only spend money recruiting new candidates, but also face costs related to the lost productivity associated with onboarding workers who don't have the qualifications they claim to. And that strains team morale. There are also security concerns. The FBI issued a recent public service announcement warning companies of the increased risk of people with criminal records applying for work-from-home tech jobs that allow them to gain access to confidential company customer data. Well, if you're not doing your required criminal background check on the person who's getting the sensitive job, that's kind of on you. A recent study by Glider AI, a recruiting software company, found that candidate fraud has nearly doubled since the pandemic began. Executives there estimated about 10% of the prospective hires attempted to commit some form of fraud. Cameron Edwards, the Senior Vice President of Client Strategy and Operations at Matlin Silver, a staffing agency that screens applicants for jobs at Fortune 500 companies, said the phenomenon was happening across industries and roles, but that's most common in technical, IT, and developer jobs. There have always been people who fluff their resumes, but more and more we're dealing with people who are just plain not who they say they are, Edwards told Insider. There was once somebody hiding beneath the desk answering interview questions for a candidate. You could even see the top of the person's head, but there are other instances of fraud that are hard to catch. Yeah, such a shame that you can't do in-person stuff anymore. And look, I enjoy the idea of work from home, especially because it does increase opportunities for people to stay in the two-parent trap, but still raise a family, spend time with their kids, homeschool if possible. Man, would this be a much more base world with more people homeschooled, especially now that we have the resources to do that. It's not just order a few books and hope for the best. You have online resources and a device, typically either in front of you as this computer or in your pocket, that can give you any piece of information in the world at a moment's notice. Homeschooling is not like it was in the 90s, but you still have to have a parent at home to do so. And the work from home opportunities are great for that, but you still have to be, if you're an employer, the responsible one. This is your company. This is your baby. This is what you built from the ground up. And make sure, if at all possible, get the person into your building and interview the person. Do the screening yourself. Because otherwise you wind up having to use AI to go back and try to catch this. There is a give and take to the work from home. And I do think it is a fantastic idea. I think it's an amazing idea. But you can't be stupid about it either. And it sounds like these Fortune 500 companies are being stupid about it. From the Blaze. New York City company owned by family who donated $300,000 to Governor Hochul paid $637 million for at-home COVID tests without a contract. The headlines just write themselves sometimes. From Courtney Wheel. A company owned by a family which has donated $300,000 to a re-election campaign for New York Governor Kathy Hochul has been paid $637 million by the state over the past 8 months to manufacture at-home pinko pox tests, and the entire arrangement has gone without either party ever signing a contract. According to the Times-Union, Digital Gadgets LLC, owned by New York City businessman Charlie Thibault, has manufactured approximately 52 million at-home COVID tests since late November and sold them to the state of New York for either $13 or $11.50 each. Although the price per test appears to be reasonable, the state did not consider any other bids from competing manufacturers. Nor did it seal the specifics on their agreement with the contract. The Office of the State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, issued 240 separate payments to Digital Gadgets between December 30th and March 25th, but those transactions have been considered individual purchase orders. DiNapoli's spokesperson denied that his office ever reviewed or approved them. The pinko pox. Just another way for people to pad the wallets of their political allies. Wonderful. From the Daily Wire. More New York City news. NYC mayor fires another 200 city workers over the pinko pox jab. Yeah, Eric Adams, he was such a conservative Democrat. He's going to go and save New York. How's that working out for all of you? New York City Mayor Eric Adams' office revealed on Saturday that the city officials fired more than 200 additional city employees for refusing to get the pinko pox jab, bringing the total number up to 1,752 workers. That is 752 new people who have to go on unemployment claims. The mayor's office told the New York Post those numbers reflect as of July 13th. 6 months ago, Adams laid off over 1,500 government employees who refused to comply with the city's vaccine mandate. February 11th deadline. Such employees who were let go included 914 in the Department of Education, 36 in the Police Department, and 25 others from the city's fire department. However, officials did not provide a list of departments where the city cut the additional 200 jobs. City workers served on the front lines during the pandemic, and by getting vaccinated, they are once again showing how they're willing to do the right thing to protect themselves and all New Yorkers, Adams said in a statement earlier this year. So, you got promised, but this is like one of the greatest bait and switches in politics. You got promised to have a somewhat semi-conservative operator of your city somebody who was conservative, but still a Democrat. Oops, excuse me. Somebody who was going to clean up after what de Blasio and his progressive policies did. And yet, you turn around and you get somebody who's even more authoritarian, who's more draconian. Out of the Democrat Party in New York politics, and you've just got the shocked Pikachu face of, how could this have happened? How could we have ever seen this coming? All right, let's talk about groomer. Remember last week, we talked about Reddit banning the term groomer. because it was being used to harass LGBTQ people, assuming that all people who aren't straight want to indoctrinate children. No, we just want to call out the ones who want to indoctrinate children. We don't care who takes it in the butt otherwise. We just don't want them to involve themselves in little kids. At which point we have termed the new term predator, which we'll put that in the chat. That's our new term for groomer on Reddit. Well, now we have it on Twitter too. By the way, when they ban it on YouTube, all of my videos are going to disappear, and I probably will on YouTube too. Because they'll probably retro-enforce it. Twitter says it bans using groomer as an anti-LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYATBIRMTIAYAX21I plus sign 3 slur, but its enforcement is lacking. They're not banning conservatives fast enough! And by the way, if you do need to come back out and tell somebody on Twitter that they are being a groomer, the new term, which I think was clanked into existence by our friends over on the Hexenhammer channels, is now Twiddler. So instead of saying okay groomer, you say okay Twiddler. I think that'll get them the message. But let's read what the Daily Dot has to say from Claire Goforth. Twitter said to the Daily Dot that it bans calling people groomers based on their gender identity, but in practice it often doesn't enforce this rule. On Wednesday, the Daily Dot reported that a subreddit post inadvertently intensified pressure on Twitter to ban calling LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBILTAXY people groomers. Grooming is a slur that falsely equates being LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYATBXT plus sign with being a pedophile. No. It doesn't. By the way, as you probably figured out, Daily Dot is a far, far left organization that will lie to you about this. Nobody who is using the term groomer cares what two consenting adults do in their bedroom. The fact is that they're trying to force kids into this ideology by being in positions of power and trying to tell people that this is the only way to live. They're grooming. What other word would you like to put to this? If two grown men want to go down, earmuffs. I should probably say that right now, earmuffs. If two grown men want to go down into their basement in leather Boy Scout uniforms and smash each other on the head while they take turns blowing their cat, they are two consenting adults. And plus, imagine how good the cat must feel. But leave the kids out of it. Leave the children out of it. Don't touch the kids. Don't talk about being trans with the kids. Don't tell the kids that they're trans too, they just don't know it yet because their conservative parents told them that they weren't. Don't touch the kids! I don't know how much more clearly I have to say this, but don't touch the kids! One more time for those in the back. Don't touch the kids. After the article published, Twitter provided a statement claiming that calling transgender and non-binary people groomers violates its policies against hate speech. It has nothing to do with how they want to identify. My friend Rachel is transgender. I don't think she's a groomer. I think she's a little confused, but I don't think she's a groomer because she doesn't want to deal with the kids. She's leaving the kids out of it. We're committed to combating abuse motivated by hatred, prejudice, or intolerance, particularly abuse that seeks to silence the voices of those who've been historically marginalized. For this reason, we prohibit behavior that targets individuals or groups with abuse based on the perceived membership of a protected category. Why is being a pedophile a protected category? Lauren Alexander, Twitter's health product communications lead, said via email. Why is wanting to diddle kids a protected category? And that's the end point of what we're seeing here, by the way. The want and the need to diddle kids is becoming a protected category by trying to lump it in, like they have been historically, since Obama was in office. They're trying to hitch their wagons to the LGBTQIRAMIGXTPYATPLT+ community. Leave the kids out of it. I wonder how many people are going to get bombed retroactively for this, by the way. From the Blade, excuse me. Twitter begins suspending users for using the term groomer after pressure from the left. Culture critic James Lindsay locked out of his account. From Paul Saka. Twitter has instituted a new policy of suspending users for using the term groomer. One of the first victims of this new censorship guideline is cultural critic James Lindsay. The Daily Dot, left-leaning millennial-focused online publication, reported this week that Twitter would begin suspending users who use the term groomer against transgender and non-binary people who want to bring little kids into their fold. A Twitter spokesperson claimed the word violated the social media's hateful conduct policy. Lauren Alexander, Twitter's health product communications lead, said, "We're committed to combating abuse motivated by hatred, prejudice, or intolerance, particularly abuse that seeks to silence the voices of those who've been historically marginalized. For this reason, we prohibit behavior that targets individuals or groups with abuse based on the perceived membership of a protected category. Use of this term is prohibited under hateful conduct policy when it's used as a descriptor in context of discussions of gender identity." RAIN, which is Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, self-described the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization, defines grooming as manipulative behaviors that the abuser uses to gain access to potential victims, coerce them to agree to the abuse, and reduce the risk of being caught. While these tactics are used most often against younger kids, teens and vulnerable adults are also at risk. The usage of the term groomer recently spiked when conservatives began using it when discussing high-profile cases of small children being exposed to sexualized drag queen shows and teachers determined to discuss sexuality with their students. Leftist organizations such as the Daily Dot and Media Matters launched campaigns this week to persuade Twitter to ban the word groomer. On Wednesday, the Daily Dot ran a post claiming that people on the internet are calling on Twitter to ban the word groomer, despite not offering any evidence that the people are indeed calling for the term to be censored. Well, Media Matters and the Daily Dot are also lying and saying that they're using this to refer to grown adults who want to go up into their attic and throw feces at each other and dress up in furry dog and cat uniforms. Or some other kind of degenerate behavior. Again, as long as all the participants are adults, I have no problem with whatever it is that you want to do behind your closed doors. I would prefer not to see it. I definitely would prefer not to see that. but leave the kids out of it. From the Daily Wire. GOP group of attorneys general urges Google not to censor pro-life pregnancy center search results. Yeah, because you knew they were going to do that. From Dylan Burrows. A group of GOP attorneys general urged Google in a letter not to censor search results in such a way that women who would be blocked from seeing results directing them to pro-life pregnancy care centers. AGs Jason Miyares and Daniel Cameron led a group of 15 additional state attorneys general in the message to Google CEO Sundar Pichai on Thursday. Unfortunately, several national politicians now seek to wield Google's immense market power by pressuring the company to discriminate against pro-life pregnancy centers in Google search results, in online advertising, and in its other products such as Google Maps, the letter read. Because of course they will. Because why wouldn't they? As the chief legal officers in our respective states, we, the undersigned attorneys general, are extremely troubled by this gallantly American political pressure. We wish to make this very clear to Google and the other market participants that it dwarfs. If you fail to resist this political pressure, we will act swiftly to protect American consumers from this dangerous access of corporate and government power, it added. The Republican leaders warned that they would investigate any attempt to make changes to limit pro-life pregnancy center search results. This included thorough investigations to determine violations of antitrust laws, investigating potential religious discrimination, and common carriage statutes to protect consumers, according to the letter. You know, if we just had a search engine that was unbiased, this wouldn't be a problem. But yeah, I mean, you knew this was coming. You knew exactly that this was coming. Think the right way, or our services will force you to think the right way. It's the same thing with Twitter right now. Now, I have blocked exactly 0 people on Twitter. On my Facebook, my personal Facebook, I have a few of my ex-girlfriends blocked. On Instagram, I have a few spammy accounts blocked. But on my Twitter, I have been very proud of the fact that I have not blocked anybody. I've muted people, but I have nobody blocked at all. Anybody has access to my page, no matter how much they hate me. I might mute you if you start spamming the page, and you can just sit and yell off into the oblivion, and I don't have to see it. Usually I just mute conversations, though. I don't really care to mute people either. Entirely. Unless, again, like they start going down every single one of my posts and leaving a comment on them. I don't usually really care to do that either. I would rather just turn the notifications off of the conversation and go. Tweet and dip. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, that's why. So, one of the new tricks that Twitter has tried to do is to try to convince you to be a leftoid, especially if you have wrong-think opinions, by flooding your timeline with leftoid people. Kosherella, Jersey Dad Reliant, who's the other big one? I know Trudeau is showing up in mine. Parnas, people like that. What's her name? The idiot from Florida. What was her name? Not Pam, the other one. The one that thinks she's going to win against Christ. Oh, I can't think of her name. Nikki Fried. I almost said Nikki Cox. Nikki Fried. The one who bombed her political campaign by suing the Biden admin. They start just, even if you don't follow these people, they start populating them up. Dan Rather is in mine too. I don't follow Dan Rather, but he pops up every single day in my Twitter feed. Because they think if they expose you to as many ideas of the left as they possibly can, that you'll just suddenly change your mind. And they've flooded me with so many of these idiots that I'm actually considered blocking them. But that would end my streak of 0 blocks on Twitter. I have exactly 0 people blocked on Twitter. All right, another one from our confused communist friend over in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, join up over there. Hack the pump. Rising prices lead to more reports of gas theft. The most common tactics aren't technologically sophisticated, and some of the tools used to hack the pumps are easily available online. From Kevin Collier. With gas prices at record highs in the US in recent months, some people have turned to hacking the pump. Since prices spiked in March, police have arrested at least 22 people across the country for either digitally manipulating computers that manage gas pumps or installing homemade devices to discount their fuel, according to an NBC News review of police and local reports. The most common tactics aren't technologically sophisticated. Gas hackers take advantage of the fact that gas pump equipment in the US is heavily standardized and relies on a handful of manufacturers that don't include strong security protections, and some of the hacking tools are easily available online for purchase. While there's no formal law enforcement metric to measure the trend, 1 in 4 convenience store gas owners say the fuel thefts have been rising since March, said Jeff Leonard, a vice president of the National Association of Convenience Stores and Industry Group. Gas theft has existed for nearly as long as there have been gas stations, Leonard said, but it was only after Katrina, where a drastic price increase led to more thefts, that most American stations began requiring customers to prepay for gas. That led to thieves learning how to manipulate pumps and payment systems, he said. And that practice has become more common as gas station prices have risen. There's really nothing like gas prices to get people to think about budgets. It gets people to say, where do we save money? Where do we find money? He said. Len Denton, a fuel industry veteran and founder of Guardian Payment Solutions Corp., a startup that makes security products for gas stations, said the gas station owners and law enforcement officials have told them a rush of theft complaints from station owners and police since March. Most American gas stations use pumps from one of 2 manufacturers, Wayne Fueling or Gilbarco Veeder-Root, which I think most of them around here are Veeder-Root. Besides thieves simply arriving in off hours and stealing gas in bulk from underground storage tanks, gas hackers primarily steal using one of 2 methods, one for each of the 2 companies, Denton said. Neither company responded to a request for comment. The first exploits the fact that many Wayne fuel dispensers have a remote control option to allow station owners and fuel inspectors to easily access them. Those remotes are not regulated though, and NBC found many of them for sale online on places including eBay. You can just pump as much as you want. The easy solution to prevent this from happening is to change the code when pumps are installed, but for whatever reason, whether apathy or lack of knowledge, some of the owners aren't. It's illegal, obviously, and there's a good deal for them. He's making money selling gas at zero expense to himself. The second method, often used against Gilbarco pumps, tricks the gas pump into dispensing far more gas than it tracks. Gas pumps rely on a device called a pulser to measure how much gas comes out of the pump, telling it how much to charge a customer. Thieves use homemade devices, which can be made from a handful of parts from a hardware store, to slow the pulser so it registers only a fraction of the gas it dispenses. The thief still needs to open up a gas pump panel to install a pulser manipulator, but many Gilbarco cabinets use a standardized key. NBC News found such keys were also widely available for sale online. I do not recommend. I recommend strongly against doing any of this. Do not steal gasoline. The people who are selling the gasoline are selling it at next to zero margin and relying on you going into their store and buying a candy bar, a cookie, a soda, or something else like that. These people are operating on shoestring budgets. Don't steal from them. As much as the left would like you to believe that they're manipulating their gas prices, they're operating on a shoestring budget as far as the gas pump goes. So don't do that. That is bad. Speaking of energy, this was fun. Disclosed.tv, a wind turbine struck by lightning in Cromwell, Texas. And through all that, it kept going. And there it goes. There goes the next arm. The oil and the lubricant for the generator is probably starting to go up at this point. And that burnt up and it's seized. It's done. Is burning fiberglass and epoxy good for the environment? Probably. From the Blaze. Nancy Pelosi responds to husband's eyebrow-raising stock purchase. Then Senator Hawley hits back with a proposal. From Chris Enlow. The office of House Speaker Pelosi responded on Monday to a controversial stock transaction that Paul Pelosi made last month. Paul purchased between $1 million and $5 million of NVIDIA stock in mid-June. The company specializes in designing and selling computer technologies that use semiconductor chips. NVIDIA uses fabless manufacturing, which means the company outsources the fabrication of the semiconductor chips themselves. What made the transaction newsworthy is that it came weeks before Congress is expected to vote on a bipartisan legislation that would allocate $52 billion in taxpayer subsidies to help boost domestic production of semiconductor chips. Competing with China to produce the technology became a priority when the pinko-pox pandemic exposed American dependence on Chinese production. Oh, we already knew, we just didn't care. Speaker Pelosi's office released a lengthy statement denying that Speaker Pelosi had any involvement in the transaction. Well, again, get the app that tracks her stock transactions. The Speaker does not own any stocks, as you can see from the required disclosures with which the Speaker fully cooperates. These transactions are marked SP for spouse, said spokesman Drew Hamill. The Speaker has no prior knowledge or subsequent involvement in any transactions. The statement added, according to Fox Business, the Speaker believes that sunlight is the best disinfectant. The Speaker has asked the Committee on House Administration Chair Zoe Lofgren to examine the issue of members' unacceptable noncompliance with the reporting requirements in the Stock Act, including the possibility of stiffening penalties. To be clear, insider trading is already a serious federal criminal and civil violation, and the Speaker strongly supports robust enforcement of the relevant statutes by the Department of Justice for the little people and the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Speaker led the House in passing the bipartisan Courthouse Ethics and Transparency Act, which would subject federal judges to similar disclosures requirements as those in the Stock Act. President Biden signed this bill into law in May. Josh Hawley responded to the statement by stating that congressional spouses should be banned from trading stocks. Ban stock trading by members of Congress and their spouses, Hawley said. Call it the Pelosi Act. Pelosi, however, made it clear last December that she wants congressional spouses to be able to participate in stock trading. At a press conference, a reporter asked Pelosi whether both members of Congress and their spouses should be legally barred from trading individual stocks. Not only did Pelosi scoff at the idea, but she defended such participation and then called her husband and said, "Hey, I'm going to regulate business in another way. I got another juicy one for you. Hey, this one's going to pop because of the way that we're going to structure the law." No, I don't, because this is a free market and people. We are a free market economy. No, we are not a free market economy. We are an economy for the rich that can get benefited by people like Nancy Pelosi. They should be able to participate in that. If you go into public service as a lawmaker on a state level, on a federal level, and hell, I would go as far as to say it on a local level, you should be forced. Now, first off, when you're campaigning, it should start. While you're in campaign mode, your stocks should stay in a trust, neither rising or falling. I don't know how that would work. I would say you'd probably actually have to sell off on the stock and then put the money into a trust before you start campaigning. But either way, to make it so that you can't benefit one way or another by people trying to bribe you because you have stock in their company, or give you stock to say, hey, make sure my company goes on the up and up. Members of Congress, while they're in Congress, and their spouses, and their children, by the way, should be barred from ever owning stock, or at least while in office. I don't want to say after office, but no, you should be banned from owning stock while you're in office. Your spouses and children, and I know that they're going to go around and find brothers or uncles twice removed or friends to go back and do it for them and give the insider information to them. They're going to find a way to get rich no matter what. They are going to insider trade. But the first thing that you should do is make it as hard to become rich on a congressional salary as you can, to weed out the people who are going to go in there and go and try to get rich. This is not a free market economy either. People like Pelosi have their fingers on the scale. Always have and always will. All right, what else do we have? Twitter news, that's always fun. Twitter Musk trial on $44 billion deal set to begin in October after Musk loses effort to delay. From Lauren Feiner and Jonathan Vanian. Delaware Court of Chancery Chancellor Kathleen McCormick ruled on Twitter's favor on Tuesday for an expedited trial to force Elon's $44 billion acquisition of the company. The 5-day trial will take place in October. During the hearing, Twitter's lawyer, Bill Savitt of Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz, argued that Twitter's request for September trial was well in line with the timeline for similar cases in the past. He added that a quick trial schedule is imperative to stop the ongoing harm Twitter has experienced from the uncertainty of the deal's closure and the alleged disparagement by Musk. Savitt also alleged that attempts by Musk, who's also CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, to delay the trial may be a ploy to run out the clock by leaving little time for appeals before the debt commitments he made to finance the deal expire. Musk's lawyer, Andrew Rossman of Quinn Emanuel, argued that the expedited timeline was far too aggressive, forced him to review the massive data trove at Twitter, which Musk wants to review to verify the percentage of spam accounts on the platform. Rossman charged that Twitter wants to continue to shroud in secrecy that number and failed to provide the information Musk asked the company earlier. But Savitt said that determining the percentage of spam accounts is not necessary in this case, since nothing but in the merger agreement turns on that question. Why I think it is? I think it will, absolutely. Why wouldn't it turn on that? Oh, this company is not as valuable as I thought and it doesn't have anywhere close to as many active users on it as they say it does. But Savitt said in July, Musk, via his attorney, sent a letter to Twitter's chief legal officer, Vijaya Gadde, explaining why billionaire believed the acquisition should no longer proceed. The lawyers alleged that Twitter underreported the number of spam and fraud accounts on its messaging service and failed to send Musk information that could presumably help the executive better calculate those statistics. Twitter later sued Musk and some of his associates in mid-July over allegations that the billionaire refuses to honor his obligations to Twitter and its stockholders because the deal he signed no longer serves his personal interests. At the time, Twitter was seeking a 4-day trial to commence in September. So, he said they didn't want to buy it. They shrieked and screamed that they wanted him to buy it. He said that he didn't want to buy it because of the bots, and now they're going to sue him to make him buy it. Here's one from Fox for you guys. Entire North Carolina Police Department resigns after new town manager is hired. From Timothy H.J. Narazi. An entire police department in North Carolina resigned on Friday after the hiring of a new town manager. Police officers and other officials in the small town of Kenly have submitted mass resignation letters citing stress, a hostile work environment, and an inability to continue the department's long-term betterment projects. In a letter to town manager Justine Jones, Police Chief Josh Gibson expressed regret towards the negative changes he felt were occurring in the department. In my 21 years at the Kenly Police Department, we have seen ups and downs, but especially in the last 3 years, we've made substantial progress that we had hoped to continue. However, due to the hostile work environment now present in the town of Kenly, I do not believe progress is possible, Gibson wrote. Neither the police department nor Jones has been willing to speak to the media on the nature of these complaints, the local outlets report. Gibson's letter was only one of several resignations that were made publicly available after the mass exodus. It is with a heavy heart that I take this action. I've been with the town since 2004 and fully expected to finish my law enforcement career in the town of Kenly. Unfortunately, there are decisions being made that jeopardize my safety and make me question what the future will hold for a Kenly police officer, wrote Officer G.W. Strong. While others addressed their resignations to Gibson, the police chief himself submitted his to Jones. Jones was just hired as town manager last month after serving in various local government positions in other states. Her new position was celebrated by the town of Kenly in a June press release. Jones has dedicated her career to public service over the last 16 years, during which she worked in progressively responsible positions with local governments in Minnesota, Virginia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. The town wrote in the statement she began her municipal career as executive assistant to the city manager and the National Urban Fellow for the city of Norfolk. So she's a carpetbagger, that's what you're telling me. Where is this, by the way? Alright. Town of Kenly. And this looks like it's a fairly small place. I mean, it's sitting right on Route 95. Which means, by the way, I've been by it. Because we took 95 out of DC to go down to Orlando. So I've flown by this. There's a better than 50-50 chance this is where I stopped to get gas. I think. On the way back up. I have to go check my receipts again. No, because it was a shell that we found. And we weren't that close to a town. We were still out in the country when we stopped there, but I think it was further south yet. But yeah, this is not a big place. So the fact that these people are getting concerned for their safety means that there is something going on that they think is coming down the pipes. I'd be interested to see what it is, but nobody's given a statement on it. But that's what we see from that. I don't know who's tapping on the ceiling, but I can hear it. Alright, from the Daily Wire. Lee Zeldin's alleged attacker arrested for a second time and faces a federal charge. From Zach Jewell. The man released from police custody after allegedly attacking Lee Zeldin during a campaign event on Thursday was arrested again on Saturday on a federal assault charge. David Jacobonis was charged at the state level with second-degree attempted assault, but he was released on his own recognizance, according to the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Jacobonis will now stand before U.S. Magistrate Judge Marion W. Payson on Saturday to face the federal charge, Fox News reported. And let's see, this came out on the 23rd, and he did. Following his suspected attacker's release, Zeldin pinned the blame on New York's leftist bail law. After being charged with a felony for last night's attack, the man who tried to stab me was instantly released back on the streets due to New York's insane cashless bail law. We must repeal cashless bail in New York, the congressman tweeted. Video of the alleged assault showed the suspect jumping on stage and walking up to the Republican gubernatorial candidate while he was speaking at a Veterans of Foreign Wars post in Parenton, New York. Jacobonis then allegedly yelled, "You're done," and put a weapon near Zeldin's face and grabbed his arm. According to reports, AMVET's National Director Joe Chenelly quickly came to Zeldin's aid and took the alleged attacker to the ground, and the suspect brought Zeldin to the ground on top of him. The gubernatorial candidate was quickly held up and the suspect was detained. Zeldin was fine following the incident and correctly predicted that the alleged attacker would be released from custody. His words as he tried to stab me a few hours ago were, "You're done," but several attendees, including Esposito for New York, quickly jumped into action and tackled the guy. Law enforcement was on the scene within minutes, and the attacker will likely be instantly released under New York's laws, Zeldin tweeted. Well, now he's got a federal charge, and we'll see how that goes. Just a few more here. We're almost done. Highland Park, Illinois Mayor Nancy Rodering testified before Congress to call for a federal ban on assault weapons.
Less than a minute is all it took for a person with an assault weapon to shoot 83 rounds into a crowd, forever changing so many lives. And the most disturbing part, this is the norm in our country. Highland Park had the uniquely American experience of a 4th of July parade turn into what has now become a uniquely American experience of a mass shooting. How do we call this freedom? Other advanced nations live free of fear of gun violence, and we know that mental health issues exist everywhere in our world.
Other developed nations of the world are sitting in fear of the fact that they won't have fuel oil and natural gas to heat their homes come November, so keep that in mind as you're yelling about this.
Mayors, and I've talked to several in these past few weeks, fear not if...
Oh, look at him. He's got the angry eyes. Mr. Potato Head, he got his angry eyes. I'm so mad about the fact that there was another mass shooting.
But when a mass shooting is going to hit our towns. What's different about the U.S.? U.S. has civilian access to assault weapons and large capacity magazines. That is the only differentiating factor. In 2013, in the wake of Sandy Hook, we as a city banned assault weapons and large capacity magazines. We knew that a federal ban would be the most effective, but a local ban reflecting the values of our community was our only option under the law. Local governments cannot do this alone. Congress must take action. You must federally ban assault weapons and large capacity magazines. Today is the day to start saving lives. Thank you.
Well, as I've always said, if the government wants to disarm you, they're planning on doing something that you would shoot them for. From Fox, speaking of gun violence. Gavin Newsom continues to cosplay as a presidential advisor to try to distract you. I'm sorry, not a presidential advisor, but a presidential candidate to try to distract you from the poor job that Biden is doing. Gavin Newsom attacks Greg Abbott on gun control with ads touting law letting residents get paid for lawsuits. From Anders Hagstrom. Gavin Newsom went after his counterpart in Texas with a series of ads condemning the Republican for what he described as his perverse stances on abortion and gun control. The Friday ads came the same day Newsom signed legislation allowing private citizens to sue anyone who manufactures, sells, transports, or distributes banned assault weapons and ghost guns. The Friday legislation also allows residents who sue to receive up to $10,000 per weapon if the suit is successful, which it won't be. The legislation was crafted to mimic Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott's 2021 ban on abortion, which allows citizens to sue anyone who provides or assists in an abortion past 6 weeks of pregnancy. Residents in Texas can also earn up to $10,000 if their lawsuit succeeds. If Texas can ban abortion and endanger lives, California can ban deadliest weapons of war and save lives. If Abbott truly wants to protect the right of life, we urge him to follow California's lead, Newsom's advertisement reads. Yeah, right now he's trying to distract you from Biden's failures by being even more draconian. I don't believe he's seriously going to be running for president. I think this is a distraction. This is a sleight of hand. Newsom does something over here, while the hand of government does something under the table and behind your back that you can't see. I don't believe this is serious. Newsom will run the full-page ad in several prominent Texas newspapers, including the Austin American-Statesman, Houston Chronicle, and El Paso Times. The ad's only the latest indicator that Newsom plans to break through California politics onto the national scene. He doesn't. He can't win on a national scene, that's the problem. Because most of the states outside of California will look at his policies and say, no, that ain't gonna happen. This is all a distraction. Both Biden and Harris are suffering from dismal approval ratings, leaving Democrats scrambling for an effective alternative. That ain't it. That ain't it. Some stars within the Democrat Party are already appearing to break with Biden ahead of the midterms. Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, D-Twitch, refused to say if she would vote for the president in 2024 as part of a recent appearance on CNN. No, Gavin Newsom, as of right now, and he might by 2024, but right now he's not planning on running for president. He is spreading far left-of-right ideas to get people outraged at him so they don't pay attention to what Biden is doing. Or failing to do, one of the two. This is a sleight of hand. I have seen this strategy before. And that's not to say, again, that he doesn't plan to go for it in 24. He might. I don't think it would turn out well for him if he did. I don't think that he would pass that. But it's all a sleight of hand right now. Get people outraged at Newsom, get their eyes and focus off of Biden, so that they can try to salvage what they can out of the midterms. From WTOP News, daycare owner shoots husband at DC hotel, claims he molested children in her care. Well, daycare owner is based. From Joshua Barlow. A Maryland woman is due in DC court on Monday after telling police that she shot her husband at the Mandarin Hotel in Southwest DC because she says that he had been sexually abusing children at the daycare she runs. According to charging documents and police reports, around 7:40 p.m. Thursday night, DC police responded to reports of a man had been shot on the 8th floor of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel at 1330 Maryland Avenue Southwest. When officers arrived on the scene, they were told by hotel management that a fire alarm had gone off in room 853. When management opened the doors to that room to check on the alarm, they observed blood on the wall. When officers approached the door to the hotel room, they were able to engage the defendant, 50-year-old Shantiri Weems of Randallstown, Maryland. Through the door, Weems was asked by officers to exit the room so they could check on the condition of the victim, identified as her husband, a retired Baltimore City police officer. WTOP is not naming the victim since he's not been charged with any crime. For approximately a half an hour, police negotiated with Weems the door to gain access to the victim, during which time she made statements including, "If you come in, I'm going to shoot myself, and F him, he's a child molester," according to case reports. When the victim could be heard through the hotel room door saying he'd been shot in the head and leg, Weems said, "Shut the F up, I will kill you." When police determined the victim was inside the room and in need of aid, they forced entry, whereupon they detained Weems. Weems surrendered a gun in her purse and indicated other weapons were in the room, but she did not know where. Police said the injuries to the victim were not life-threatening. A subsequent search of the room discovered 2 shell casings and another firearm in the hotel safe. Police say they also recovered handwritten documents within a notebook, the contents of which could be seen in plain view. According to the case reports, recovered material contained phrases like, "I'm going to shoot the victim but not kill him. I'm going to paralyze you. My only regret is that I didn't put a bullet in your head," which apparently she did. One letter contained an apology to her baby stating, "I didn't know." In an interview with detectives, Weems said that she had been told by her children, parents, and teachers at the Little Kids Castle Daycare. She operates in Owings Mills that her husband had been molesting children there. She also told the detectives the allegations of abuse had been reported to authorities in Baltimore. She had also said she didn't intend to kill her husband, that she was not, and that she was having thoughts of harming herself. Well, if he was diddling kids, he deserves to die. Possibly not that way, and I do hope they open an investigation into this, but so that's terrible to look at. And it does sound like they're not planning on opening an investigation into the dude who just got shot. I hope they do. Because this is beyond, absolutely 100% beyond horrifying. But it is what it is, so we'll see what happens from that. Alright, 2 more. And then rules of acquisition, and we're out of here. In fact, we're going to end on some good news today. South Carolina Attorney General, federal court removes injunction blocking South Carolina's fetal heartbeat bill. From Tim Renaud, which, given the fact that Roe's been overturned, is probably the reason behind that. South Carolina AG Alan Wilson announced Thursday that the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit has lifted a federal injunction blocking the state's Fetal Heartbeat Act from taking effect. The court stated that after considering the AG's motion in light of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health by the Supreme Court, the court vacates the previous opinion in this case, vacates the district court's preliminary injunction, and reminds the case to the remands the case to district court. AG Wilson called the decision a victory for life and noted that there's still a legal challenge to the new law at the state level. But since there are no court injunctions blocking the law, it is in effect. Yeah, they moved quick. Alright, and the last one that we have from KTLA5 out of Los Angeles. Some good news. The FCC finally cracks down on auto warranty robocalls. Hi, we are calling to remind you that your automobile that is 15 years old will soon be out of warranty. And at 200,000 miles, you may be on the hook for major repairs by yourself. Please call this number and we totally won't scam your information off of it to extend your vehicle's warranty, even though you've got 250,000 miles on the vehicle, 4 mismatched tires, and every bearing is leaking oil. From David Lazarus. After 2 years of being swamped with the consumer complaints about those cruddy auto warranty robocalls, the FCC is at last ordering a crackdown, but don't hold your breath. The FCC says about a dozen individuals and companies, many based in California, are responsible for the bulk of these annoying calls, which typically try to trick you into connecting by saying your car warranty may be expired. While considering my truck is a 2014, I think that ship sailed long ago, but they started calling me when I still had an 01, which was 17 years old at the time. I think that ship sailed long ago. If you do, you'll be pitched for new coverage that will probably be more expensive and less reliable than what the dealer offers. And also the fact that a lot of the times your vehicle is 15 years old. The FCC has instructed phone companies no longer carry calls from those dozen or so malefactors bothering people on a daily basis. We're not going to tolerate robocall scammers or those that help make the scams possible, FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel said in a statement. Consumers are out of patience, and I'm right there with them. But here's the catch. The FCC acknowledged that the robocallers have purchased access to about 500,000 phone numbers. That means when one number is identified by phone companies as being hinky, the caller just switches to another number, and so on and so on. Whack-a-mole is the appropriate metaphor here. While it's good the government and industry are finally working together to address this headache, your best bet is to still register with the Do Not Call list to manually block spam numbers after each call. That won't put a stop to them, but little by little it chips away at these guys' ability to reach you, and any progress in that regard is good progress. Yeah, I've actually been getting calls from a polling company at all hours of the day, but it's well known enough that it gets caught in the spam blocker that Verizon provided for free, so I don't actually have to hear anything, but I get the alert that says, Dinetta called and isn't a contact. This number is a low risk, but is still being reported for spam. I looked them up too, and yeah, it's a polling company. I don't want to take your poll. I'll tell you my opinions about what's going on in the government right here into this microphone. All right, and that is it for the news for the day. And the last thing we do on Monday is check in with the Ferengi rules of acquisition. I myself am an ultra-capitalist. So, in line with the Ferengi, we go out and check in and see what it is that is best to be ultra-capitalist with. So, we will scroll down. We did the first 89th rule of acquisition last week. Ask not what your profits can do for you, but what you can do for your profits. But there, just like the 88th, are two in different canons. So this comes from a short story of DS9, Best Tools Available. And the 89th rule of acquisition by this beta canon work is, it is better to lose some profits and live than lose all profit and die. And this is something that, we go on and we talk about under numerous circumstances. The dude that does all the financial advice, I cannot think of his name. One of my friends actually did his program, and she's still struggling a little bit, but she did this program. It's David something. What's the dude's name? You guys know who I'm talking about. He advertises on AM radio all the time. But one of his pieces of advice was, if you're struggling on your bills, as long as you've got your basic, you've got food in your stomach, a way to get back and forth to work, whether it be your own vehicle, a rideshare, or being able to walk, and a roof over your head, you do live to fight another day. But it's also the same thing I've said about political strife. Don't take your fight to the government. They're better at killing than you are. And if you're dead, you can't vote. Well, you'll still vote Democrat, but that's another story. If you're in a struggle, if your business might crash and burn, if you might have to downsize at some point, or if you're in a situation where your safety is jeopardized, sometimes it is better. Risk does have some of its rewards, do keep in mind, but sometimes it's better to come back and walk away. You'll lose some profit, you'll lose some clout, you'll lose your ability to get your voice heard if you don't go down to DC. But you're still alive. You still have some of your profit. And you're still going to do much, much better alive than you will dead. Under the few occasions, there are very few, where you're going to do better dead than you are alive, is when, like, the government comes to your door and kills you for dissenting against the government. That's one of the few occasions where you're going to do better dead than alive. But when you come back and take the fight out to the government, they can come back and paint you as a dangerous aggressor. and you will do worse dead than you will alive. But in all things, no matter what, you're going to do better living. There are some things that can't be helped, especially if your children's life is in danger. But your progeny is still going to be. And yes, there are people out there that I would give my life for. But I know when to cut my losses and keep myself alive, because I can continue to go forward and make back what it was that I lost, and I have the opportunity. You have no opportunities once you're deceased. So, 89th rule of acquisition. It's better to lose some profit and live than lose all profit and die. Keep on living. And if you do have to take a minor setback, take the setback. But keep on keeping on and keep on winning as much as you can. Because your day will come once again. Ramsey, that was it. Thank you, Arvold. I knew it was a Dave. Yeah, Dave Ramsey. As long as you got a roof over your head, can get to work, and to keep food in your belly, you live to fight another day. Those are wise words in and of themselves. And I've never prescribed to Dave Ramsey's other stuff, but those in and of themselves are some very, very wise words. And you would do well to abide by them. All right, and that's it. That's all that we have. Let's switch up the track. Well, actually, I find the track again because we were losing power throughout the night, Saturday night. Yeah, the storms were bad here. There actually was a tree down outside of my place, and I had to park on the street for the night until the city came and cleared it. And then me and the neighbors just started clearing it too. Get to know your neighbors, folks. That was actually my first time meeting a lot of the neighbors. Where's my outro music? Which screen is that on? Because all my icons got moved around. There it is. It's over on the left-hand one. All right, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody that came and hung out with us, and everybody who looked at the news and commented throughout the day. If you're just lurking, thank you as well. I won't be able to call you out by name if you're just lurking, so if you do want to get acknowledged on the Friday show, make sure you leave those last minute messages in. Otherwise, we're going to head out of here for the day. I got to go do a couple chores and run to town for a couple things today, and hopefully get on a hike, but we'll be back here later on tonight, probably about 5:30, unless I wind up being on the phone all day again, which is what I was at last time here. But we'll be back here later on tonight to do some more gaming streams. So it's a nice day. I would not blame you guys if you didn't come out here for that. But do stick around. Come and hang out with us, with me, as we go and finish out our Fallout 3 journey. We're back onto the main quest and we're back into the vanilla game. So it'll be a lot of fun, and we'll start to see some of the story off of there. And I think the main game is going to go pretty quick now that we're already up at level 20. So come back and hang out with us for that. Otherwise, we will be back here tomorrow morning for more Contemporary. Stick around if you're over on the Twitch side. We're going raiding for the Daily Ignoramus. Otherwise, we will see you the next time we're here. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.